estado de Florida, Tallahasee, Florida. Gracias por estar con nosotros en este día. Y vamos a darle gracias al representante Bob Cortés, que está con nosotros ahora mismo. Y David Santiago, un representante de Santiago de Deltona. Muchas personas es posible que no lo conocen, porque está en la esquinita, tú sabes, de donde está el pueblo puertorriqueño. But he's a good guy, he's from New York, that makes him a better guy. And just to let you know, our objective here today is actually to bring information to the legislature. But because the way the timing of this event comes at the end of session, and right now they are in the end of session. So they've got bills upon bills that they have to vote, and they'll be popping in and out to participate in here, but that's why they can't sit here all day long, because they're actually in session and they're taking bills. So I want to take thanks to both Bob and David for taking the time to be here with us today, and then jump right into the program. As we indicated last night, the purpose of having Puerto Rico Day always started off as a cultural event, right? Just started the way to celebrate the culture, the participation of the citizens of Florida who consider themselves Puerto Rican. And now that we have come over 1 million, I hope you have your bumper stickers that we gave you, that we're over 1 million. It's time for us to take responsibility for being citizens of Florida and assisting in the solutions that come to Florida. Part of the problems or situation is that the migration from Puerto Rico, which is draining Puerto Rico due to the financial crisis, brings opportunities for us here in Florida to deal with the situation. And so Puerto Rico Day this year is dedicated to the concept of not only celebrating the participation and the culture of Puerto Ricans, citizens of Florida, but also taking upon la batuta of our responsibility as citizens of Florida and finding solutions to working with our colleagues and our friends and other citizens of the state of Florida. So in that capacity, we have tremendous talent in our community. Who better than us to analyze the situation, to know what's going on and find solutions than our people, our experts, and to that extent, we want to deal with this particular panel, which is going to deal with the demographics of Puerto Ricans in the state of Florida and what that means. So let me introduce, I'll start off at the end, okay? I'll start with Julie Torres. Let me give you a little bit about her. Julie Torres is a PhD candidate in anthropology at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. She is currently working on her dissertation research on the Puerto Rican diaspora in Orlando, Florida. Her project engages with feminist analysis of social justice within the Puerto Rican community. With that, Doctor, could you please slide? Judith, please. You want to be that? Oh, you want to be that? Oh, you want to do first? Okay. Well, then do it in reverse. Because they have planned that now. Okay. Then let me start with the eminent. I don't have enough words to describe the gentleman I'm about to describe. His name is Edwin Melendez. He's a doctor, of course, in letters. But what he does as director of Centro de Estudios Puertorriqueños from Hunter College is an extraordinary task that all of us have to be grateful to him for, because he is documenting through Hunter College and the work that he's doing. He's documenting the story of the Puerto Rican community, a culture that refuses to die, a culture that refuses to be engulfed, that continues to strive despite 118 years being part of El Gigante del Norte. It's an amazing task, it's an amazing community, it's an amazing culture. And Dr. Melendez, as director of Centro, is documenting everything. So please, let's give him a big round of applause.
Gracias, Tony, and thanks to all of you for being here this morning. It's great to be back in Florida. I have to confess, the first time that I attend this particular gathering, Puerto Rico Day, and I hope it will be the last. So let me Okay. Closer. Much better. So I said, buenos dias. So let me jump into it. I'm going to try to present some points. I know my colleagues are going to complement what I say, so I'm going to skip some slides. But let me say that everything related to the crisis is posted on our website. We have plenty of presentations last year in a summit that we did, and all kind of documentation that supports, if you want to have more information about that. I want to jump a little bit faster to what's happening in Florida, because this gathering is about that impact. But I have 2 or 3 talking points related to what's happening in Puerto Rico, the impact that it has in the United States, in our stateside communities, Puerto Rican communities, and then a little bit about the impact of that in Florida. And Jose is also going to talk about an important point, which is the diaspora solidarity movement, the role of the Hispanic Federation, but the role of other organizations as well. So let me jump into it, and don't panic if I go too fast. All of this is going to be posted, and hopefully you have more time to revise. So the crisis in Puerto Rico has 3 main determinants, right? The elimination of Section 936, that was a tax exemption to federal tax exemption to corporations operating in Puerto Rico. The main industry affected by that was the pharmaceutical industry, and employment was reduced from 140,000 jobs to less than 70,000. But the average salary for those workers was over $70,000. So it was a huge impact in the economy. The public collection of taxes never recovered from that, and therefore Puerto Rico entered in a fiscal crisis, and the brilliant solution of our elected officials was to borrow money. And that ended up in a debt crisis that we're still going through it. So let me just say those things. And by the way, Puerto Rico is subjected to congressional legislation, so they have responsibility in what happens. For example, parity, medical, Medicaid, and other services is important to us and can only be affected by Congress. So having said that, those factors converge to create the crisis that we have currently. The financial crisis in the U.S. didn't help. Perhaps we can talk about that later. But that resulted in several things, right? One was the austerity measures impacted Puerto Rico, and they're going through very tough times, right? I'm going to present some data in a second. But the other thing is that it created a massive migration wave to the United States. Okay, we are perhaps in the period where most Puerto Ricans have left, even more than the so-called Great Migration of the 1950s. I'm going to probably show you a little bit about that. But so the humanitarian crisis in Puerto Rico is just unfolding. We're not there yet, but poverty is almost 50%, child poverty is almost 60%, and I can go on down the list, right? Unemployment is not too high because participation rate is so low, right? It's about 12.5% as a year ago, but that's double the rate here in the States. And I can go on citing data on this, but the point is, things are not going well down there. So as a result of that, Congress did take action. They imposed a law that is called PROMESA. That law has 2 main components, and they both are controversial to different people. The first and most important one is that it put a stake on the debt. It gives us a break to figure out how to get out of this mess, but also opens the door for debt restructuring, and that's what's happening next week. I don't want to get into too much detail about that, but we're in a critical time in that regard. And the second thing that it did was to impose an oversight control board. An oversight board that has authority over any local law. So they have to approve a fiscal plan, they have to approve a budget, and we're going through that process as well. The idea, and there are other clauses, but those are 2 the main things that happen. So Puerto Rico is still in the midst of that, trying to find solutions to that debt crisis. The reaction in Puerto Rico to that, as should be expected, was not necessarily partisan. I'm going to show you some data on that. But the fact is that it's a mixed reaction. There are some people that are really affected by the crisis, that are very up in arms and protesting for it. But there is a wide support for PROMESA, believe it or not. In public opinions, okay, before PROMESA was enacted, support for the law was less than 50%. Right after and before the elections of November, it was across political parties. independents and pro-statehood, the New Progressive Party people were more supportive, but there was across-the-board support. Then you ask, why is Puerto Rico people supporting an oversight board that gives control to, appointees instead of elected officials? And the answer is the next slide. Because Puerto Ricans do not trust their governing institutions. That's what the poll says. Who do they trust? Federal institutions, the federal court, the FBI, So that's where we are. So people have lost trust in their political institutions, and they now have to rely on federal institutions to sort of have trust that this is going to go somewhere, that we're not stuck in the crisis. So that's a little bit of the background. Now, right now, where we are with the Oversight Board is a very critical period. I don't want to get into too many details, but right now, the state on the debt expires May 1st, okay? So we're days away. The day before, the governor has to submit a budget that coincides, is supported by the fiscal plan that was approved by the Oversight Board. That means that the austerity is going to start kicking in. Now, the good thing about what the Oversight Board has done, there are all kinds of controversies, right? They went back and forth on the terms of those agreements, but this is a very telling graphic. The budgeted amount to repay the debt is between 20 and 30% on the dollar of what would have been required to repay. So even whatever you say about the Oversight Board, please keep in mind that what they have authorized to repay is a fraction of what Puerto Rico would have had to pay in the absence of PROMESA. The price of that is the loss of democratic process. But that's the graphic shows you that trade-off, right? We don't know the specific of that austerity that is coming. That's coming over the next week. But anyway, having said that, the Oversight Board is the only entity that can take the debt restructuring to federal court. That's expected to happen May 1st. If it doesn't happen May 1st, it's going to be a major litigation, legal chaos, okay? Let's hope we don't get there. Maybe in the Q&A we can go a bit more about that. So, and that doesn't resolve all the debt. For example, PREPA owes about, short of $10 billion. They have been going back and forth renegotiating that, and the terms are like 85 cents on the dollar. So whether the Oversight Board can approve that remains to be seen. The value of those stocks is more like 50%. But so there's a big gap in terms of what the bondholders expect and what Puerto Rico is saying they're going to pay, and what the debt may end up being in federal court. So that's where we are in Puerto Rico. Now, how does it matter to you? Okay? Why are we here today? Well, because look at that graphic. That's the historical migration from Puerto Rico to the U.S. Okay? Forget about the different colors. What it matters is that that's the trend of migration. And if you look at the 50s and you look at what's happening right now, you can see where the story is. Now, that migration out of Puerto Rico results in the following. That today, the people who live in Puerto Rico are about maybe 40% of the total Puerto Rican population. Okay, 60% or more reside stateside. Look at those graphics. That's the story of our crisis. People are leaving the island. Okay, that's very important. Why? Because of those of us who are here in the stateside, 70% of us are U.S. born. This is the land that we know. My children were both born in this land. The impact of this new population on health services. And those are posted in our website. We have a new sheet for Florida. It's State of Florida 2015. You can download it from our, and it has all those details. So let me skip that. But the migrants, if you look at the comparison of the uninsured rates, the Puerto Rican migrants have a much higher rate of uninsured than the others, that should be expected. It takes a while for them to adjust. That map that you see there is about the overlapping between Medicaid expansion and the uninsured. So that gravity model tells you the story. Jose is going to talk more about the diaspora, engagement, but let me make two comments, okay? If you look at the purchasing power of the Puerto Rican community, including Puerto Rico, you can see where New York and Florida are. we are together more significant than all the income that Puerto Ricans in the island have. So the tremendous power that we have moving forward to affect not just what happens in Puerto Rico, but what happens stateside, I think is very important. My final thought is, as Tori suggested, it is time for action. We got to do this, not just for Puerto Rico, but for our communities here in the States. So,
Thank you.